Run.
Well, hello everybody and welcome once again to On The Run, this time from lovely Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. And I'm here with, of course, Ben Blaschke. How are you, Ben?
I'm well.
That's good, and I'm well too. We're here for the Regulating the Game conference right here in the CBD, that's the Central Business District, it's what we call it in Australia, of Sydney. And your thoughts on the conference so far, Ben?
Oh, it's been highly enjoyable and quite informative too. We've had some pretty high-profile keynote speakers, and we've had some interesting panel sessions and discussions all about regulation and what's going on in the industry. And we just saw today some AI presentations. So yeah, it's been quite informative, I found.
Yeah, quite Australian focused for obvious reasons. We're here in Australia, and IAG, obviously, we're based in Macau, but our secondary markets are Philippines, followed by Singapore and Australia, all sort of roughly $5 billion markets. We've written a lot about Australia. You've written a lot about Australia in the last few years, given everything that's going on. And I guess the two biggest speakers, both of whom have spoken now that we're at Thursday night for us, you guys will be watching on Friday morning, were Kieran Carruthers and Adam Ritkenskild. Let's take them one at a time. What did you think about what Kieran had to say?
Yeah, of course, Kieran, the CEO of Crown Resorts here in Australia. Look, first of all, credit for Kieran for speaking publicly. He knew we were here. He knew we were going to report on this. So credit to Kieran for talking at a very critical time for Crown. They're expecting the report back, I believe, in Victoria and New South Wales soon around their push for suitability. I think they're about going to find out the answer to that within the next 2 months. So credit to Kieran for getting up and talking quite openly and honestly about their remediation efforts. Obviously, I think Kieran, and I'll talk about Adam soon too, I think both pushed a little bit of their own agenda too. No surprise there, as to be expected. But, Kieran spoke a lot about what the work Crown has done to remediate itself following the findings of the Royal Commissions. Look, it was very, very interesting. And also, he spoke about having an industry-wide forum to standardise.
Well, how about I hold you up on that? Because that's coming up.
We are coming to that.
We are coming to that, yes. I forgot to tell you before we got started. And of course, we're going the one microphone technique because I only carry one microphone around with me. That's a bit of a schoolboy error. I must get a second microphone on for my travels. Well, what about Adam? Adam Ritkenskild, the CEO and Managing Director of Tabcorp. Perhaps you can, you're the one that's based in Australia. Perhaps you can tell the viewers, some people might not know Tabcorp or what they do. Perhaps a little intro on what Tabcorp is and your thoughts on what he had to say for himself.
Yeah, look, Tabcorp, I guess the easiest way to say, they're a racing and wagering giant. They have control over all sorts of areas in the racing industry across Australia. They provide vision to pubs and clubs. They obviously, they're involved in the sports betting market here. They're on track. In most states, they have a monopoly on retail wagering as well. Quite a broad business. They did have a lottery business, but they spun that off recently to become the Lottery Corporation. So much more focused now on the wagering, sports betting side of things. And I guess the key challenges for Tabcorp in recent years has been the emergence of your corporate bookmakers. So bit of a battle there. Sportsbet has certainly emerged as the leader in the online sports betting space in Australia. Tabcorp used to be the dominant player. Now Sportsbet is, and Tabcorp's obviously fighting to get that share back. So that was all discussed in Adam's talk, among other issues that are affecting that company at the moment.
Okay, so let's, but before we get on to the top 10, which is going to include some discussion about both Kieran and Adam, what they had to say. Next, we'll just a little plug for MAD. If you've been invited to MAD next week, Wednesday the 20th of March, we'll both be there, as will Jadeson, as will Dorothy, as will a number of people from the IAG team. The chairman of Padcor is going to be there, as will, I believe, the entire board of Padcor and Lots of senior industry folks. It's going to be really big mad at Luna Lounge in Jakarta, Manila. So if you've received an invitation and you want to be there, and you're going to be in Manila on Wednesday the 20th of March, please do RSVP to be at that great event. And the following week, we've got Mad in Macau at Sofitel Macau, our great friends at Sofitel Macau and with Success Universe, Pont 16 up there. Dr. Hoffman Ma will be in attendance. It's going to be a great little French barbecue we're going to have. That's on Tuesday the 26th of March. And it would be remiss of me not to give a little plug to the sponsors of those events. So the Manila event, the platinum sponsor is Light and Wonder, and a number of gold sponsors. We've got Aristocrat, Evolution, IGT, and FBM. And for the Macau event, once again, it's Light and Wonder as platinum sponsor and Aristocrat as gold sponsor. And a shout out to the venue sponsors. Thank you very much to our friends at Jakarta Manila for being venue sponsor of the Manila event, and to our friends at Sofitel Macau, Sofitel at Pont 16, the GM up there, Vince De Paoli, great guy, and they're once again looking after us up there in Macau. So, Ben, we're going to see you at both Mads or just Manila, Mad?
Both. I'll be at both.
I should probably know that, but now I do. Okay, thanks for telling me. Okay, well, let's move on to this week's top 10. So, big week of news in the gaming industry. Seem to say that every week, but this week, certainly some really good stuff. So we'll start at number 10 and work our way up to number 1. So number 10, story about us. I just want to say thank you. Story we did run this week. Thank you to the 40 applicants, actually 42 applicants. 2 more applications have come in. Please stop sending the applications. 42 applicants for an executive position with IAG. We're having a big year at IAG. We're expanding. We're looking at putting perhaps 8 more people on this year. We've already put on 2, about to be a 3rd, and this senior executive position will be a 4th, and then we've got plans for up to 4 more as the year rolls out. So thank you to those applicants, and please bear with me. We're working through those 42 applications, and I will personally reply to every single one of them. How do you feel about that, Ben, having a new IAG person on board?
Good luck to them.
I heard the boss is hard to work with. Anyway, number 9, Hollywood. This is a good one we had this week. Hollywood to produce a biopic detailing the rise and fall of Steve Wynn. So this is based on the 2018 book by Christina Binkley, The Winner Takes All. It's been optioned by a Netflix producer, and it's going to be all about Steve Wynn. How will Steve react? Is this with his blessing? Will he sue the pants off them? I don't know. Thoughts from you, Ben?
I mean, that was a question I thought. I mean, Steve Wynn has always denied all allegations, so a documentary-style show or a biopic, how do you pronounce it? Biopic. Right, yeah. There you go. It will be very interesting to see how they approach that. It's supposed to be about the rise and fall of Steve Wynn, so I'm sure, from reading about this series, they're going to look a lot at his rise during the 90s, but it'll be interesting to see how they address his fall more recently.
Very, very good. And number 8, Final Ice London. We were there, the 5 of us from IAG. The Final Ice London drew a record crowd of 52,345 unique attendees. So there's no double counting there. 45,000 at ICE itself and 7,300 at the sister show IGB affiliate, which is just downstairs on the right past S10. The ICE number's up 12%, the IGB number's up 27%, the total up 14%. Ben, thoughts?
You know, on the final day there at ICE London, I went up to the media room, and the media room at ICE overlooks the thoroughfare straight down the middle, and it was as people were leaving, and it was a little bit sad to see the people exiting for the last time from ICE London there, but it was a big crowd, I was just watching. That's a lot of people leaving. And I look forward to seeing what happens in Barcelona, because that's going to be, they've got more floor space. It's going to be a bigger show again, considerably from what I hear. And also, I don't mind a bit of tapas, so I'm looking forward to that experience. Look, it was a great show this year at ICE London, and I really am looking forward to seeing what happens in Barcelona next year.
I think there was no doubt it was our best ice ever, and the year before was also our best ice ever. So, ironically, ice, we do a lot of business at ice. It's kind of ironic given that it's in London, the opposite side of the world to Asia, but everyone's there, everyone from all over the world. In fact, there were people from 164 countries apparently at ice this year, which is amazing. And I agree with you, it's just tinged with a touch of sadness to say goodbye to the XL centre there, but they've outgrown it. They've just simply outgrown it, and the show's going to move on, get bigger, and I'm sure we'll all have a great time in Barcelona, as you say. Some tapas, some maybe a little bit better weather than in London, might be a bit warmer, which would be good. So we're already looking forward to that for next year, for 2025. Can you believe it, 2025? And it's going to be January, I think it's January 20 to 22 or something like that, don't quote me. Anyway, let's move on. Number 7, and we're all watching Thailand with great interest. A second study into legalizing the Thai casinos is now complete and ready for House approval. The Deputy Finance Minister came out last week, and you wrote a story, Ben, about the fact that he had said the study is done. It's a comprehensive study, and he is the chairman of the committee, 60-member committee, so a very big committee, and some interesting things to come out of that. Must not be adjacent to Bangkok, which wasn't in the first study, and a few differences to the first study, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big one. Must not be adjacent to Bangkok. Does that mean it can be in Bangkok, just not adjacent to it?
I think you're passing a little bit too much there.
All right, yeah. I mean that's interesting because the first study named 5 locations, and Bangkok was one of those that would be contenders. So if they're looking away from Bangkok, I think it says a little bit about what their thought process is around the reasoning behind these casino resorts would be to perhaps boost some of the smaller regions rather than Bangkok, which is already a thriving metropolis. So, that's something to look forward to. But, yeah, look, the process is moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things that were in the first study that actually sounded a little bit Japan-like. So I hope they don't go down the Japan route if you're American. 5% only of the floor area allowed for casinos. I think in Japan it's actually 3, wasn't it? A 500,000 baht requirement. You're required to have 500,000 baht in your bank account for 6 months. That's about 15,000 US to prove that you're probably worthy of being able to play if you were a local. So, and they recommended, as you say, Bangkok, and also the what they call the Far Eastern Corridor, the Eastern Economic Corridor, the EEC, which is that road that goes down to Pattaya, or Pattaya if you prefer, and actually a place called Rayong, which is just a little bit beyond Pattaya. And that seems to be the place. If you can't have it in Bangkok, that seems to be the place to have it. And actually a few weeks ago I was there. I took a little side trip out of Bangkok and went down to have a look at where it might be. And it's not a flight, it's just a drive, and it is near enough that people from Bangkok would drive there. So that seems to be where it's going to be. But I think a lot of water to go under the bridge before we see cards dealt in anger, I think.
Yes, agreed.
Very good. Let's move on. Number 6, and now we can talk about Adam Ritkin-Skilled. The Tabcorp boss leans on the state regulators to deal with Ladbrokes retail wagering challenge. Now, I won't say too much about this. I'll let you do this one, Ben. So, what's he worried about, and what's the point that he's making, and what does he want the regulators to do?
So Tabcorp pays a premium to secure exclusive retail wagering licenses. In other words, being able to set up retail shops in states and towns and cities across Australia. You walk into the retail shop, place your bets, watch the game, whatever. One of their key rivals, so one of the corporate bookmakers, is Ladbrokes, and Ladbrokes is trying to get around this limitation. They're not allowed to run retail wagering outlets. So what they've done is made a deal with some hotels, I think with the Australian Hotels Authority, and directly with some hotels to create these Ladbrokes lounges, which are basically areas in pubs that are full of Ladbrokes branding. Obviously, there's no retail betting opportunity there, but people can bet on their phones these days. So the concept would be, you're sitting there in this Ladbrokes lounge and you want to have a bet, and you go, oh, I'll bet with Ladbrokes. It's sort of skirting the law. They're not offering retail wagering, but they're setting up a branding exercise in a retail environment. So that's what Tabcorp is highly upset about, because they just paid $860 million in Victoria, for example, for a 20-year retail license. So this is a loophole that Tabcorp is looking to be closed. and wants regulators to look at this. So he spoke about this quite openly in his keynote yesterday. Well, yesterday, our time currently, on Wednesday.
Yeah, and that was obviously the thing that he really wanted to ram home. I actually had a second point, didn't he, about the bookmaker, about the bookies. We won't get into that detail. If you want the second point, go on to asgam.com and read the story. But he clearly came with a bit of an agenda, which is totally fine. He a couple of points, as Kieran did too. He wanted to make some points, so it was interesting to to talk to him. And I asked him a question too. I asked him about whether if online gaming, as in casino gaming, was ever legalised in Australia, which it isn't, you're going to do sports betting or indeed poker, would Tabcorp be interested in it? To which he said, well, we would definitely look at that. So that was interesting too. But anyway, let's move on. So the other keynote speaker was Kieran Carruthers, CEO of Crown, and he proposed an industry-wide responsible gaming and AML, anti-money laundering forum. And he proposed to have this industry-wide forum, and he said that Crown would gladly chair it, and his intention would be to have hundreds of pubs and clubs implement the same kind of AML and RG controls that are currently required of Crown, because he quite openly said, he didn't deny it, he said, we've got customers who are coming to play, and then we tell them the hoops that they have to jump through. I mean, he mentioned it's a 15-minute wait once they get to the top of the queue to then disclose all this information about themselves to satisfy the requirements to nominate their pre-commitment, how many hours they want to play or how much money they want to lose every month. It's not a very nice thing to do to a punter. And they're just sort of saying, well, you can shove it. I'll walk out the door and go off to this pub or this club where I can play the machines and not have any of those requirements. So that's obviously a difficult situation for Crown. So he is saying, look, all these rules that we have on us, there should be system neutrality, as he described it. Don't know if that's a bit of a buzzword or if that's a fair call. And I actually posted. You wrote a very good story explaining the situation, which I posted on my own personal LinkedIn, which got a lot of response in just 24 hours, had over 100 people like it, and had a couple of very interesting comments. One from the CEO of a club. I don't know if it was a pub or a club. I think it was a club, actually. I think it was a club, and he was quite... I hope I don't offend the person by saying angry, or he had quite a strong point to make. Let's just say it like that. He had quite a strong point to make that. Oh well, hang on a minute. Crown has done all this bad behaviour, and now these rules have been placed on them, and now they want us to have to do the same things that they do. His analogy was, it's like somebody got done for drunk driving, and now he has to put a breathalyzer on his car to make the car start, and now we're all supposed to be penalised in the same way. And there was another comment from another person along the same line. So the question is this a punishment for Crown, and they should cop the punishment, and the other people who maybe didn't act badly shouldn't cop the punishment? Or is this something that we've learnt in the industry, and this is fair rules that should apply to all? I mean, how do you see all that, Ben?
That's a long and complicated question I could probably answer for an hour. I'll start off by saying I've done the sign-up process at Crown and linked it to the safer gambling process. It is a bit of a pain in the ass, but it has to be done. It takes 15, 20 minutes, I guess. Look...
Did you do that in Sydney or Melbourne?
Did that in Melbourne.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I can understand the point of view from all concerned. Of course, Kieran's going to want standardisation across the industry, because people are walking into the casino saying, that's a pain, I'll just go down the road to the local pub and play the pokies there. That's happening a lot. So I can understand that, and I can understand a resistance from the pubs and clubs industry. But I think that what the reality is, that regulators around the country are they're working on the casino industry, but they're starting to look at pubs and clubs too, because they do pose an AML threat in terms of, if people are using poker machines to launder money, then it makes sense that they're going to look at smaller pubs and clubs, which may actually have, certainly the smallest ones, less ability to police that. So, time will tell, but I think that's just going to become a reality. So, an industry-wide forum that Kieran's proposed is, if it's going to happen anyway, then at least Crown can, help assist its own experiences and expertise in setting it up.
Yeah, I guess his logic is, he says, well, we'll gladly chair that and we'll help smaller organisations do that. Smaller organisations might say, well, we compete with you guys, so, shove it up your backside, we'll do our own thing, thank you. We won't have you telling us what to do. I mean, his logic is, look, we've spent a lot of money on this, we know how to do it, we can save you money, but, pretty clearly there'd be an ulterior motive there. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. He's just doing the best for his company, as every CEO should do. So anyway, quite a controversial one. Interesting. Let's we spent a lot of time on that. Let's move on. So, another story that came out of Kieran's talk was about Crown Sydney. So I asked him the question, can Crown Sydney be profitable? Because, of course, Crown Sydney originally was something that, well, we won't get into that. It'll take too long. But, this was a Jamie Packer thing that there's been a lot of criticism that there was no consultation, that it was just shoved through. There was no tender process. It was just shoved through using this sort of mechanism. I can't remember the name of the mechanism, but it was like a, super duper good thing for Sydney mechanism, just make it happen. And the whole idea was that the 349 rooms in Crown Sydney were meant to be full of basically Chinese high rollers. At the time, that was the model. This is when the whole junket thing was going hard and Sun City were going hard. But of course, that doesn't exist anymore. Sun City and Tak Jun are no more. And that Chinese junkets are now effectively banned from Australia, in practice. So it then begs the question: how will Crown in Sydney turn a profit when they don't have access to that market anymore? It was built for a market that doesn't exist. Thoughts from you, Ben?
And of course, no slot machines in Crown Sydney either.
Indeed.
There are ETGs, but there's no slot machines. Look, they've got to find a way to fill their casino. Now, one of the things I've been a bit critical of is, a few months ago I wrote a story looking at the Singapore model. Singapore had a clear vision for what their casino and integrated resort industry should be, create an iconic destination, and Marina Bay Sands is just that now, and Resorts World Sentosa as well. Crown Sydney could be that for Sydney, except that there doesn't seem to be any political will for that to be the case. And this should be an iconic building that we promote around the world. If we don't want high-rolled Chinese junkets coming in, that's fine, but there's plenty of high-rolling people around Southeast Asia, for example, that we could be targeting and filling those rooms.
Or even just Australia.
Or even Australia locally. At the moment it seems anything around casino, gambling, integrated resort is a dirty word. So it would help Crown if they had a little bit of support from the powers that be, from tourism, governing bodies, that sort of thing. But in the meantime, that's not the case. So I guess Crown needs to find a way to fill that casino. That's the challenge for them. I'm not sure under the current regulatory environment that's going to be particularly easy right now.
Yeah, I mean, some things he said during that talk was he said that they were clearly, he admitted they were clearly challenged. That's a direct quote from him. He said to make it work, it is critically important to have the casino work for the viability of the property. He said that without going into detail, we are clearly having conversations with government and regulators. More on that in a moment. He did say that the first priority was suitability, getting through the suitability hurdle, but he also said that they've done the work they believe to get suitability, and that should that occur, they will have a genuine, meaningful conversation about the model. Well, that's obviously code for we want the government to change the rules so that we can change that casino to make it profitable and viable. And he finished off with a very clear statement of intent. Will it ever look like what it was originally envisaged to be? Absolutely not. Can it be profitable? Absolutely. And the subtext there that he didn't say, but he certainly hinted strongly at, was the government needs to change if they want that to be a viable sort of icon for Sydney and to be profitable. They need to change the model and maybe allow them slot machines, or maybe allow them to be a mass casino. I mean, Star might have something to say about all that. But I think the last thing that I would say about that, and I'll give you the last word on this as a Sydney sider, is that the building's beautiful. I mean, the building's absolutely spectacular, and it should be promoted, in my view, as an icon of Sydney, just the way that Marina Bay Sands is in Singapore, because it's the tallest building in all of Sydney. It has views directly over the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. It's just magnificent. I mean, you and I have had a beer up on a high floor there, and it's a great place to do that. And I just think, perhaps they should cut Crown a bit of slack on this one.
I agree. It's been a very divisive building, Crown Sydney, because the anti-gambling brigade look at it as a big casino. That's all they see it as. They don't, they look at the whole Barangaroo precinct as a casino, which is weird. That's how they talk about it, even though Barangaroo's got multiple buildings with office blocks. It's got dozens and dozens of restaurants. So you've got a portion of the population who are just anti that building no matter what. And all the buildings around it for some reason. But I see it as a great opportunity for Australia. It should be promoted as that. It is unique in being a 5-6 star hotel. There's
definitely been, 5.
Yeah,
there's
been so few new 5-star hotel developments in Sydney over the past 10 or 20 years. That's one of them. It should be promoted. It should be. Okay, it's not going to be Marina Bay Sands, but it should be our Marina Bay Sands in a way.
Yeah, I've stayed there one night only, but it was an excellent hotel. Anyway, let's move on. So a couple of poker stories now. More your cup of tea, Ben. Sands China brings. It was story. One day this week, and then 2 days later we had another story. So let's do the first one. Sands China bringing poker tournament back to Macau with the first ever poker tournament event in 6 years, the Macau Masters. I'll leave you to give the details of the event and your thoughts on that, and then we'll move on to the second bit.
Yeah, look, so the Macau Masters has been on this week at the Venetian Macau. Not a particularly big event. In isolation, it would not be a big deal. 3K Hong Kong buy-in, fairly standard. But the notable part of it is, and I've been banging on about how tournament poker can be an opportunity for Macau to grow its customer base internationally. Well, this is the first official poker tournament in 6 years. Obviously, COVID, the Macau table cap, all sorts of reasons behind that. First tournament since the old PokerStars live room at City of Dreams Macau shut down in 2018. So it's significant in that sense. And so I did speak to Andy Cobell at Sands about that, and he admitted, we are looking at tournament poker as an opportunity for us moving forward. So that to me was positive news.
I think there's a real opportunity here because poker was always frowned upon before because of the table cap. Under the previous licensing regime, before the retendering, the table cap was an issue, not so much of an issue now. And also, the government is saying we want more international visitors, people from outside of Greater China. Well, poker's just perfectly placed for that. And you wrote, I in fact even know which month it is. It was January 2023. The editorial that you wrote, I think we talked about it together, was all about, well, you want to get international visitation to Macau, run some poker tournaments. I mean, because poker players will travel. They will travel. I remember the number, actually, the main event of the last major, was it Macau Poker Cup or whatever, APPT, whatever it was at the City of Dreams PokerStars room, the main event had 2,499 entrants. So 2,500 entrants. Each of them have got, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, kids, entourages, whatever. That could easily be 10,000 people that came to Macau, and a lot of them would be from outside of Greater China. So, I mean, that's a segue into the next story, which was World Poker Tour. Then 2 days later, Wynn suddenly announced, who knows, maybe it was in response to Sands, but 2 days later, Wynn announced the World Poker Tour, WPT, is to hold the first ever Macau event at Wynn Palace in June. It'll be the 18th to the 24th of June. It's got a Hong Kong 40K main buy-in, so what's that, roughly 5,000 US? So that's a serious event, half the buy-in of the main event of the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas. It'll have a 200,000 high roller event, so US 25K. And this is the third stop now for the World Poker Tour in Asia after Australia and Cambodia. So this is a really serious event. And Ben, you interviewed Adam Pliska, the CEO of the World Poker Tour in Wynn in Las Vegas last year, and in fact wrote a couple of stories that we published in January this year around that. You know Adam well. I know him as well. I think you know him a little bit better. Tell us about your thoughts on a big event like WPT coming and your chats with Adam.
Well, this is what I've been, as a poker player, fan, a game that I love. Seeing a big series like this come to Macau has been what I've hoped would happen. It's actually happened earlier than I thought it would. As you said, I spoke to Adam Pliska in Vegas in December and asked him about Macau, and he said he was travelling to Macau in January just gone, and talking to people. I didn't expect an announcement quite this early, but it's great to see. Not only is it the first ever WPT Macau event in Macau, it's actually a main tour stop, so it's their top tier. So Australia and Cambodia are main tour stops. WPT does visit Taiwan and Japan each year and hold smaller events, and they hold a smaller event in Australia as well. But it's significant to have a main tour stop. So, look, this is, I think it's a great move by Wynn. No doubt the fact that they already have a relationship with Wynn Las Vegas has helped them build the one over here. I guess my one question is the June dates does make it clash with the World Series of Poker going on in Vegas. How big will that affect them? Certainly in terms of international players coming over, it probably will. But maybe they're going to focus on bringing Asian-based players in first of all, and maybe they can look at that date in future years.
Yeah, I think they'll probably change that date. I mean, a lot of events, and we run a lot of events, and quite often the first year it's kind of as soon as you can, and then because you don't want to wait, you want to get the event, you want to get one under your belt, and then you move the date to when you really want it to be. So I think I agree with you. I think June's not a great time to do it, but when is a great time, so that they'll figure that out, and probably in 2025. I've no doubt it'll be a success, and I've no doubt that it'll be the smallest WPT Macau ever, and that every year it will grow and grow and grow from there. So congratulations to WPT, to Adam Pliska, and to the world's poker players. I think a lot of people have been hanging out for a poker event in Macau. And the number one story this week was a kind of a dry one for number one, but a very important one. JP Morgan came out and said that Macau's GGR is holding steady at US $76 million a day through early March. What are we today? March the 14th. So I think this was, from memory, the first 10 days of March. And the GGR for those first 10 days, 6.1 billion MOP, which is 575 million US. Divide by 10, you get 76 million. The number in February was a little lower than everybody expected, but they came out and said they thought that was due to luck. They thought that the players played well on that. And mass up to 110% of pre-COVID levels, breaking through. Ben, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's showing that I think things have stabilised a little bit now. The mass is coming in every month now at 110%, maybe 120% in the busier months of pre-COVID levels. VIP seems pretty stagnant, about 20%. I guess that's about where it's going to sit from now on. But yeah, look, I think the general consensus from reading all the analyst reports is that GGR is holding steady. As you said, in February it probably wasn't quite as high as people thought, but then when typically GGR has sort of slowed down those periods, it's actually holding a little bit more strength than usual. So I think we're seeing a more steady, resilient industry guided by that mass dominant GGR now. So I think that's a positive moving forward.
Yeah, I think that 20% VIP is even overstated. I think there's a lot of tables that the DICJ classifies as VIP because they're not on the main floor, they're in a separate room, but in reality they're premium mass, and the casinos themselves, the gaming operators don't want to reclassify them as mass tables, because once they're reclassified, even though their annual fee is only $150,000 instead of $300,000 on those tables, but that's pretty negligible, really, that difference. They don't want to change them, because then if they ever want to change them back, it might be a difficult process. And look, when I first saw these numbers, an immediate sort of thought process went through in my head, and this is the difference with IAG, you get opinion and analysis. So here's some analysis. So I thought, right, well, if mass is 110% of pre-COVID, let's think about pre-COVID. Roughly, we were at, if you look at 2019 numbers, 50-50 mass and VIP. I think it actually was a little bit, it was more like 55-45, but blunt instruments calculation, let's just say 50-50. But the EBITDA margin on VIP obviously significantly less than mass, perhaps a quarter of mass, because of the commissions that needed to be paid out to junket operators and even players. So if you said a quarter, well, you could take the EBITDA on mass in 2019, add the EBITDA on VIP in 2019, so that would mean you'd get 125%. If 100% equaled the EBITDA on mass in 2019, and let's say that they're both the same turnover, so both the same revenue, and one quarter of the EBITDA, okay, 125. Compare that to 110. They're now saying, JP Morgan are now saying that mass is 110% of pre-COVID. So mass EBITDA would be 10% of pre-COVID, except for one more thing. The costs are much lower. So during the COVID years, 2021 and 22, the concessionaires learnt how to get their costs right down. They got them down probably something around 30%. Now, obviously, those costs will have gone back up again with the expansion, but I don't think they've gone all the way back up to where they were. They might be down 15%. So I know some of these percentages are on slightly different bases, but they're all similar sort of numbers. If you take 110 and you sort of give it another 15% for cost saving, 125, well, that means we're pretty much a coin flip between pre-COVID EBITDA and now COVID EBITDA. So even though pre-COVID our GGR was 37 billion compared to, I think the run rate now is around 28 billion. The EBITDA should be the same, roughly the same. So Macau, I think we can declare it probably as profitable as pre-COVID now.
Yep, and I was in Macau just last week, as were you. I was walking around. I actually stayed at the London at this time for the first time, walking around, and just absolutely packed. Everyone was packed, like the old good old days. You know, it was my first, walking around Macau shortly after the COVID restrictions ended. It was building, but now it's truly busy and bustling again.
Yeah, well, the average visitation to Macau in 2019 was 108,000 a day. I think we're getting something like around that number, 100,000 a day. I think during, 1.3 million during the 8 days of Chinese New Year, averaged 165K, so an average day. Weekends are probably a little over 100, weekdays are probably a little under 100. We're somewhere around that. So, yeah, Macau pretty much back to where it was. Little less turnover, a little less tax for the government, but probably profitability, probably very, very similar now. So the share prices should be similar, but they're not. But that is a discussion for another day. So look, that was quite a long on the run going through that, but ably assisted by Ben, our managing editor. It's good to have a good chat. And the last thing I would say is my run continues. I'm in Sydney now. Be heading to Manila on Saturday to prepare for a week in Manila. A week in Manila and Clark, actually. We're heading up to Clark on Thursday after we do the MAD event, which is shaping up to be a fantastic MAD. A lot of RSVPs, a lot of very senior people. As I said before, Chairman Tenko has RSVP'd and said he will be there with the entire board, have all RSVP'd, the Tabcorp board. And then we'll be straight down to Manila and over to Macau for MAD, and then who knows what happens after that. When do you get back to Sydney from Macau, Ben?
Good question. I think it's around the 30th of the month, roughly.
Right. Yes, all the travel blur moves into a blur at some stage, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, very good. And have a great weekend. That's it from us here in Sydney, and we'll see you hopefully in Manila on Wednesday next week, or in Macau on Tuesday the week after. We'll certainly see you online next week at asgam.com and for IAG Breakfast Briefing. Have a great weekend, and see you later. Bye for now.
Bye.
That was just bye, Ben.
See you later.
See you later. Bye.
Run.